go. I'm just gonna go work down there.
Okay.
Let's see our cameras.
Haven't got any training on the new system.
Yeah.
Because you're here.
Well, she dropped Leon off when I left, so she's probably, yeah, she's probably.
That would make sense. Streaming?
It's streaming.
So I poured enough water.
And I'll continue to try to work to see if I can get the lights.
Okay.
In case you're interested, because I'm watching you.
Okay. So it's streaming.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Noel just waved. He's sitting next to Jerry.
Does that mess you up?
Can you hear us, Dan? I mean, not on your phone, on the microphones on the TV.
Yes, I
Can you
can hear you on the microphone.
You can hear something?
So that it's working.
Must be the speakers.
Can we go ahead then with the meeting since we apparently are broadcasting?
Sit.
All right. Call this meeting to order, and I'd like to ask for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Something you want?
We're not recording, we're just streaming.
I'd like to allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where's the recording box?
turn those mics over.
Change it up. Should enter. Sure. Sorry. I know you didn't know that. Made all these changes. Put it in the new boxes.
Deletions, corrections to the agenda? Out.
Move on.
Mary Jo, on item 5, item B should be along with item A, because the vendor fee is that portion of the sales tax that I wanted to bring
So we'll discuss those
back.
two together then.
D, and add those words to A.
Okay? Any others? So do I have a motion to make that change on the agenda? Do we need a motion to do that? Change the agenda?
That's it. I figured it out. You have to turn all the mics down there. Yeah.
Corey, motion was made by Cameron and Noel. Seconded. Change the agenda from sales tax up to vendor. And that will eliminate D. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Okay. So we'll go to the development, an update from the negotiating committee. I would go to Mark, you start that.
What, the negotiating committee?
Yeah.
Well, Tanner and I had a meeting with Mike and George. What day was it, Tanner? Thursday? I think it was Thursday.
Is it Skype?
It was a Skype meeting. Go-to meeting. And we discussed placement and organization of buildings and restrictions and everything. It was a good meeting. The only one thing that came down to a serious must-have is that the jerky place wants to be dead on the corner as close to the street as possible. However, they're building it, they want to build a 35-foot, roughly 35-foot structure there. So, it went really well as far as I'm concerned. There was discussion about road, Saddle Club Drive, whether it's going to be pushed through or whether we're going to have to push it through and what effects that will actually have, because Sally brought up that it creates, because of the elevation change, it will create a natural barrier across there. So we got into that discussion, and we're really kind of waiting for them to come back with the final layout of how they really want it laid out. NES is going to help with that. Is that the one over the world, or did you have anything else that I missed?
No, that's essentially it. My notes just say NES drafted 2 preliminary concept plans, which were shared with the developers. Both plans were reviewed, changes were discussed with NES, and George and Mike and Murphy and myself. NES is updating the drawings to reflect those changes. In the meantime, Mike and George continue working on details such as specific architectural style and building locations. And they're still trying to put details on it. Progress continues, albeit slowly. At this point, I'm not sure quite when to expect a concept drawing from NES that is ready to present and truly reflects what the developers are proposing. They still seem to be a little uncertain as to the details of their plan. They're trying to put those together. So they've asked us a number of times for input and direction. So anything that we can glean from the board would be helpful. Specifically things such as how much square footage is available versus how much does the DDA wish to retain for any open space or public space, whether it's green space for events and whatnot, or space around the cog car, or public right-of-way, public parking, those kinds of things. We've indicated what the board has instructed us to, that it would be nice to have some room around the cog car to try and maintain, use that 60-foot distance east to west boundary. They're aware of that and trying to keep that in consideration while moving through design, site layout, site planning. Although, like Murph said in this most recent meeting, it became clear that one of the uses that they're planning to bring here is wanting to be, or needs to be, as close to and visible from the highway as possible. And so that northeast corner of the Lot 2 area is where they're wanting to put a building that's not a very large footprint, but it's pretty tall. So fairly tall and narrow. We received an email not long ago, yesterday or the day before, has a picture of a style and two pictures.
Yeah, there were 2 emails with 2 different layouts.
Yeah, there's one with an image though. It's a photograph of an existing structure. With mountains.
No, there was one before that, like last week, where they sent 2 emails, and one had, one showed the buildings around the cog, and then another showed the buildings not around the cog.
So there's one that just came in. I'm not sure if Corey's had a chance to send it out. I think I just forwarded it to you.
The most recent one that you sent at 6:30, I have not sent out. The one with the photograph of the historic image was, I think was the last one.
Yeah, that was like a mine shaft thing. That was the last image I saw.
Okay, so
Bring it. All the bring it.
so that's where they're looking for input.
Calling
So
somebody a name.
Can I give some input?
well, that's up to her.
Mary Jo, can I give?
Yes, please, Jerry.
Can we, how close are we to moving on beyond just conceptual? I mean, can't they give us something that this is what we want to do? And then we say, okay, yeah, let's tweak it or something, but actually come up with something and all, I mean, rather than napkin drawings type deals. I think it's drug on to the point that maybe you could just explain that there's a little frustration from this one guy on this board that we need to have more on paper, and let's just present it, and then we can yay or nay it, you know, we're to that point. And speaking of yay or nay, a super tall structure right on the corner there. I would have to think long before I would think that would be all right. But anyway, that's my goal.
Thank you, Jerry. I would like you to set up a meeting for them to come here and like to hear what the rest of the board thinks about that. I mean, I don't think they haven't, George has, but the rest of them don't know our town. They really don't understand the traffic. They don't understand the site as well as I think they need to come up with a good plan. I would really like them to come in the next few weeks and have a meeting with this board. What do you guys think of that? Yes? Anybody else agree to that?
Comment.
No?
I almost feel like this is deja vu. I feel like we're living something we've lived in the past
That's
year.
why we need to move on.
I feel like we're developing their site, and coming to us with proposals, saying, hey, this is what we want to do. That's what, we're not developers, guys. So they should be presenting to us what they think is best, what they want to put there. And then let's get a contract, let's get some dates, let's get some movement. Because I feel like we're stuck in quicksand right now. And the emails that I'm seeing are exactly what Jerry said. They're napkin drawings, and I don't think that's what we want. I mean, if we want to move forward and do the best for the community, let's have them send us some professional drawings.
Okay, NES has some professional drawings.
Okay.
All right, those haven't been put out there. We sat there and we talked with Mike and George and moved things around and tried to help them better understand why a 35-foot building right there on the corner blocking that stretch of view into the area might not be the best idea. And we've been covering down on those things and trying to help them launch that as best as possible. But there again, we also remember we are dealing with developers who are going to be worried about their ROI, their return on investment, okay? And we deal with the old aspect of they have other businesses going on, so they're doing other things. But also, we have 3 things that we can choose from, or 3 items that we get to play with in business. That is good, fast, and expensive. We get to pick, and as investors and developers, they get to pick 2. They either get good and inexpensive, or good and fast, or it's not going to be the third one. That's kind of the way it works. So I'm just saying, we sat there and actually took the professional drawing and moved it around with them, but they don't have anything solid just yet. So, I mean, if they wanted to dump a bunch of money into a major, somebody pushing this, I get it, but
They want to develop or not?
They want to develop.
Okay,
It's moving. It is moving.
I feel like we're in quicksand.
Okay, Al?
2 things on that. The 35 feet, if I recall right, the mean elevation height that we can have in the commercial is 35 feet. So they are within the code. Now, whether it blocks a view or not, that's another question, that can go elsewhere. But yes, I have been through this so many times. What's happening right now is exactly what has happened many times, and they all fail to bring something forward. If they want to do something, let's get on the ball. They can buy the land, then they can develop it as they wish. Not this fiddle farting around.
Okay, anybody else?
And
Al's not done.
maybe I'm earthy enough. Guess what? I'm a little excited about that.
No, but you're right, it is deja vu.
I think
This
we all
seems
are
cycle.
anxious about this.
Yes, we are.
Now, I'm in giving the benefit of the doubt. Tava did pull out, so it opened up another space for them to reconsider. But they should have been thinking about it long enough to have an idea of what direction they want to go. Correct.
And that was the basis of what Ellen and I put together in the application form,
which they
was to
have.
get away from this kind of stuff.
And they still haven't filled out that application form.
No.
Leonard?
Well, we've expressed to them, we being the negotiating committee, and our communications to them, that we're not in any particular rush. We're not trying to rush them, that their pace is and will be what it will be. That we're not trying to dictate to them what their development looks like, that frankly, we're trying to stay out of the way as much as possible and just keep them within some guidelines and let them be creative, let them be the experts behind the development, not us. And so that's been our approach. I'm hearing comments that sound to me a little bit different, like it's time's about up, we're not patient anymore, we want to see, their drawings and progress, and so I guess trying to understand the desires of the board and the direction that we are being given here makes me want to ask, do we have a deadline? Does it really matter? We're not under contract with them. We've given up no rights to the property, to them or anybody else at this point. We're still free to entertain any other proposals or things that may be submitted or come along. We're in a pretty good position, and I'm not sure if we're feeling pressure to get things done or show things, to the public or the council, or is there? Where does the pressure come to move forward at a certain pace?
I think we're just all a little gun shy, and apprehensive about what it's really going to materialize. It just seems like maybe we shouldn't be in a total rush, but maybe we should move a little faster than we're moving. What I'm feeling. I agree. We shouldn't pressure them. They're there to make the right decisions and all, but just kind of prod them a little bit. Say, let's get something moving a little bit. We don't have to decide right now, but give the board, give the community something to look at. Maybe it's time to come out from behind the door.
Ellen?
Well, maybe our negotiating team has seen more than we have, because what we've seen, as we say, are the cocktail napkin drawings, and so it just doesn't seem as professional as maybe we'd like to see in their thinking and in their possible commitment, even though they haven't filled out that application. Perhaps they're waiting to see, are they worried about infrastructure cost? Or the road, as you mentioned, Saddle Club Road. It seems like maybe they're worried about that with the infrastructure cost. Do you talk about that? Or CDOT?
We have, not recently. But we've explained to them that there very well may be some. That's part of the process that we're in right now, is trying to illustrate the plan in a document that can be submitted to the city and CDOT and whatever authorities need to review it and then begin to dictate requirements for drainage and access. And at that point, once we know what those requirements are, we can take some cost estimates. Engineers provide cost estimates and negotiate. Either the developers pay for it, or we pay for it, or somewhere, some of both.
Alan, you had something?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the position and comments that I made a month ago or thereabout, about the bringing on board and developing this property with a professional developer to define what that product is, and then be able to have a professional marketer market it. If we start to bring in the definitions, that you're looking for, what's it going to cost, what are we going to come forward with, that's what the developer can come up with as far as a product that we can sell. That will give competition to whomever maybe look at that project. You know, the ones that are currently, you know, they're moving along with cocktail napkin plans. And if you bring this competition in with a marketer, this may start to say, oh, we better get to do something if we're going to do anything at all. So through competition, this thing could move forward. Pressure to move forward, I guess I've seen that for a decade and a half, you know, and all kinds of iterations, none of which come to fruition. And I guess maybe before I die, I'd like to see it
Something built there, right?
built there, yeah. We spent a decade and a half. That we need to do something.
And I respect that, but we have started with them and we've talked about this before.
Sure.
And that, I think, is part of the urgency to see something more, because to give them an opportunity to do it, because they're already into it. We have NES that's working with them. I think that the board needs to see a little bit more from them. I know that the negotiating committee has seen and heard, but we haven't.
And also, yes, they've been at it for a good number of months, but it's not ready for mainstream yet. Why? A professional marketer, professional developers could perhaps to move that along a lot faster than what they are doing. I don't know how many projects they've done or how committed they are here, other than trying to tie up an asset that they may do something in the future.
Yeah, well, I don't know
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, we don't
Noel,
know.
and then Tanner.
We could certainly have produced a drawing at this point ready for mainstream dissemination. But knowing that pieces are still moving around a little bit, in part because Mike Williams is not here and not as familiar with the property and everything you have just said, and George has been trying to talk to him and help guide that process, and so things keep moving around a little bit. And instead of just drawing up something that looks good and to bring forward, we've been waiting to make sure that whatever is presented is representative of the plan, with as few changes going forward after that as possible. And that's part of, I think, what's taken a while.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go ahead. No.
Are you done, Tanner?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, you know, it's too bad. It would be really nice to see George here at these meetings with all of us. And so maybe we can request that he come. Of course, it is early to get up, but he has an interest.
No.
What's one hurdle that is keeping this thing from moving forward right now that you guys can address? Maybe, I know we're getting these drawings in. Is there something that's keeping them from making the jump, making the leap? Is there something that they're hesitant about? Because I feel like this is almost a year. Actually, I think it's almost a year. So that's not. I feel like we're just waiting for them, but is there anything we can do to help the process move along, move the needle forward? Can we give them a due date to say, hey, let's try to accomplish this by this date, and then we're not all in this gray area? Because a lot of us we do not know what's going on, and I feel like it's going to be like this for another 6 months, and that's just no bueno. So.
Okay, Murph. You had your hand up.
We did some major changes on it. Top of the house pulled out, and now everything has changed. Okay, and that was 3 months ago? Top of the house pulled out?
December,
2 months ago. Okay, now Lot 2 is available again. So they're trying to rearrange everything. I mean, how much money are you willing to dump into it? How much money is the DDA willing to dump into this, okay, to make this move faster? Because we're kind of, they are the developers. They're the ones spending the money, and granted, we're throwing a little bit into it, but why the huge rush? I mean, we made major changes happen well into the game. And so now they're referring and realigning aiming stakes, and they're going to need a little bit of time to do it now.
Okay, so what can we do to move the needle forward a little bit? One answer, part of the answer, I guess, to your question, I think we resolved at our last meeting with them.
Okay.
It seemed to be a stumbling block during that meeting as to how much land was available, how much could they use for their uses on Lot 2 versus how much did the DDA want to retain. And I think we answered that question then. I thought we had answered it before, but we covered it all pretty clearly in our last meeting. And our answer was, remember, we talked about 60 feet from the northern boundary of Lot 2 toward the south and from all the way at the eastern boundary to the western boundary. That was the request. And you're free to propose using that space, but that's what in the board's mind is where they're retaining some land that can be where Bergstrom Park could be expanded to the south slightly. There's room for people to get around the cog car, to have some small events and whatnot, and if that area needs to change its shape or whatever, so be it. But that's where the board's at, and the rest of the property is available. And if you need to use some of that land, then just think about how you can blend that space on down further into the development. And so that's what they've been doing. And otherwise, told them it's all available. Right. It's all available. Propose the development. And
2 questions. How often do you meet? And, sorry, Major.
All right. No.
How often do you meet?
Questions.
And did you discuss a timeline?
Very loosely, some time ago, we discussed a timeline.
Right.
How often do we meet? Well, I speak with George on the phone probably weekly, maybe the same with Mike. We have a number of emails throughout each week. And then the only formal meeting, per se, where we had John on the phone with Mike, with George, with Murph and myself was last week sometime. Now, that said, I had reviewed the preliminary NES drawings with George and Mike maybe 2 weeks before that. So after NES produced the first 2 concept drawings, I reviewed those with George and Mike. I took notes, listened to their comments, their questions, their concerns. I took a bunch of notes, turned around, called John at NES, relayed all of that, asked for some changes. He began changing the drawings in preparation for the meeting that we held last week.
Let me ask this. Would it be good, Jan's got 2 questions we'll get next, but would it be good for a little more communication through Corey as to when you're talking and kind of what you talked about, just short sentences, so that the board was a little more informed of that this is moving forward and you are talking, and
Sure.
maybe set up in the middle of March a time for them to meet with us in person, Mike and whoever else is a part of this, and maybe by then that be the timeline to give us some formal presentation, drawings, such. Jan is next, and then Jan?
Yeah, I'm here. Have we given them a price per square foot, and why haven't they filled out an application yet?
We did give them a price per square foot. That was some time ago. It was based on the discussion we had following all of Al's research and what he brought back to the board. We actually gave them 2. One price for the Lot 2 area, and then another price for the lower southern part of the property. Why they haven't filled out an application, I'm not sure. I know they have it. I haven't really pressed them for that. We've been trying to get these drawings done. But the message I'm picking up is it's time for drawings to be finalized, at least preliminary concept.
Presented.
They need to approve a drawing, and so we need to get
to that point so it can come forward. The board's wanting to meet with them. If we can get Mike out here, have Mike and George come to a meeting, and whoever else they care to bring, and they need to start working on that application.
Yeah, they do.
Okay,
So is that? I mean,
thanks, Jan. Al and then
Yeah,
Noel.
I'm going to go right back to where I've been, working before. In order for them to really design where they're going to put buildings, they need to know where the boundaries of that land is. Now, it has changed fairly recently, and I'll still propose that if we had a planner that could work with this, define what that ground is on the ground. Put in some, have it surveyed. Then they can go ahead and do the topog for it and know then where they can place buildings. Right now, all they can do is say, well, it's going to be there someplace. But if they've got boundary lines that they can work with, know what the setbacks are going to be, know where the utilities are and where they've got to run them, this starts to fix their costs.
Well,
So we need to
hasn't that
develop
already been
a
done?
product that is marketable. And perimeter boundaries would help a great deal.
Hasn't that been done? Didn't we do that with
No.
Eric Smith's group?
Well, we just changed it with the cog car.
Not a lot, just
It doesn't
60
matter.
feet. Not
We've
a
got
lot.
different lines.
So you want us to spend more money?
And define what that property is, the boundaries.
I don't think I think the city can help us with that. Sally, can I ask a comment from you on that?
Sure, you have a preliminary plat that basically shows the boundaries of the property. to
Thank you.
scale.
Thank you.
Were they surveyed in?
It's not a valid preliminary plat, let me say that, but yes, there is a survey
Yeah.
associated.
Okay. So we don't need to spend that money right now yet. No.
Do you have another meeting scheduled soon with the developers?
To call them after this.
After this? I'm going to highly recommend that you involve Sally in these calls to maybe discuss things, potential things when they get past certain points of the discussion with you and Murph, that she can bring in some other insight into steps that they're going to have to take, after they get the initial development. And I think Sally will have some great insight. So I think I highly recommend, it's obviously your choice, but to have Sally involved in that next meeting. And I didn't ask, but would that be okay?
Sure, that's fine.
That would really, I'm sure there's some things that we're not all thinking about, and her experience, 30 years, well, 25 at planning, but.
Okay, in respect of time, we need to move on. Jerry, one more.
I would just like to say, Murph made a very valid point about the Lot 2 only becoming available in December, and maybe they're not as dilly-dallying as I thought they were. Good word, huh?
You started all this, Jerry.
I know. And I would like to, not make it as dramatic as we are.
Do you think meeting with them in the middle of the March is an unreasonable request? That we have something that can be presented even if it's just conceptual, something that can be presented, and they will come here and meet with us as a whole board?
I don't think that we should tell them when they're ready, let them know that we're ready to talk with them.
Well, they already know that, but
Yeah.
we are obviously feeling very uncomfortable that we're not more included. So would that be, apparently not. Apparently.
Okay, I'm sorry, there's only one way to make that inclusion, and that's to call board meetings every time we have one of these meetings for the development.
We don't need to do that, can't we?
Okay,
Just
then.
set a time and does that give us a month and a half to get ready for that? To just come and meet with us and bring something?
If it's okay, we'll express to them the board's desire to meet, to invite them here to have a real face-to-face meeting, which Mike Williams has mentioned several times, knowing the need for that we're to that point. And he'd like to come out here, spend some time, meet and greet and talk and discuss, walk the property, etc. And so I'll reinforce that it's board's starting to question, are we making progress? What is the plan? Who is this person? And it's time. Can he come out here? And what works for him? Maybe mid-March doesn't, maybe early March does, or whatever. Just put that ball in his court. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Does that sound good? Just a consensus to the board? Does that sound like good advice to our negotiating committee to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then that we'll leave in your hands and let us know what kind of reaction you get.
And in the meantime, we'll get with Sally and make sure she's up to speed, caught up on the correspondence and where the plan is at. And if we have an opportunity to have another conference call with the guys, we'll try and schedule that with Sally.
Okay? Is that good with Sally?
If I could just clarify, my role is that of the city planning director.
Correct.
Not the consultant for the developer. So it's very important that you understand, nor am I the consultant for the DDA. My interest is protecting the city's interests, the rules and regulations that I'm obligated to enforce. So just to make that clear, that my role is there only as the staff to the city.
Right.
Are you good with that, Noel?
Well, yeah, I mean, you might not even have to say anything. You can just listen in unless they say something, outside they want to develop, past some
Darren,
boundaries.
you got something to say?
Yeah, ideally, a development team from the city would include Sally, would include the utilities director and the public works director, the three. It's not necessarily being active, but being able to be there to answer any questions that the developer might have about infrastructure, any of the obstacles, and be able to assist the negotiation team to ensure that the answers are provided in a timely manner to them. Because, like you said, I think someone said about time. Time is of the essence often for them. And if they feel like things are going slow and they don't have the answers that they have, they don't feel comfortable moving forward. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Jerry?
Well, what about, are they going to feel comfortable exposing their plans and stuff? Is there a confidentiality part of...
You mean we need an executive session?
Well, no, I mean with the Sally's involvement and everything. Is Mike Williams and them going to say, well, we're talking to the world. It's all of our thoughts are going to be exposed to everybody. And is that...
They would probably have to decide that, don't you think?
I
Sally?
meet with people all the time that request confidentiality. So
Okay, and that's all I'm
very
asking,
good at that.
is if that's doable.
No?
I mean, obviously Tanner can ask. That would be the first. Is it okay if we bring on the planning director, the utilities director? We've got to put ourselves in their shoes. Okay, we have a bunch of gray area questions, right? Well, maybe they do too. And once they get the big picture, the certain questions Sally can answer and certain questions Kip can answer, maybe when they get the big picture, it'll be easier for them to move forward or not move forward. But like we said, we don't want to waste their money and we don't want to waste their time. So let's give them all the information, and based on that, then they can make a decision what they'd like to do. But this inching forward is, it's a pushing a boulder up a hill. Sometimes it feels like, because you push it up a little, you get more information. You push it up. Why don't we just give them all the information? I think this is part of the problem we've had in prior developers. They didn't have all the information, and then halfway through they go, oh, you mean I got to put a road through here? So let's give them all the information. Then I think we're all going to be more comfortable moving forward. because there'll be no Easter eggs, I guess, is that?
Okay, does the board, or does the negotiating committee have direction? We need to move on to the next.
Yes.
You've got
so.
direction now, and so we can move to the next topic.
Yeah.
Al, did you want to say it again?
Yeah, and again, I'm going to still reflect on this, the desirability of a planner that's working for us on this project. And it does exactly what Noel wants to accomplish, in that they define what's there so that whomever wants to build on it or develop it has a lot of that information.
Okay.
We don't have it. It is up to us to define that product,
Okay.
So
not somebody else.
Murph, we've got to move on. Murph?
I'm just going to say, Mr. Bourne, you come to me and say, here's your plan, Mr. Developer, do it. Is that what we're going to do?
No, I'm saying define the product right now. Then the
Okay.
developer who is going to
When you
use that
snatch that out of
land.
the stars, sir, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does any developer going to want?
Well, we'll take that into consideration. There's already a plan, a plat. We can review that. I'm sure they have it. Tanner, do they have it?
They have the topo survey,
They
they
have
have
it all.
the grading and
So
erosion
they've
control
got it.
plan that was followed. They have.
So we can just move forward with them until we reach a point where we can't. Then we'll decide and hire somebody to do whatever. Okay. You have direction. We're moving on to number 5. And this is discussion on the taxes and fees. The reason this is on the agenda is we've all gotten our estimates on our property tax raise. Taxes are on our mind. We were a little late in addressing this in October. It was kind of an afterthought. We tabled it, and now we're bringing it back to the surface so we can work on it. We will have a recommendation, just a recommendation from the DDA on these tax issues to the city council in the future. We have moved vendor fee and sales tax into A, and I'm not sure, does everyone understand what the vendor fee is that we're discussing? That was the percentage that we were given for collecting the taxes for the city. And some time ago, that vendor fee was taken by the city in order to pay for some, or I don't really remember why, but I think that has passed, paid for, and we would like to recommend that the vendor fees be given back to the businesses and the collectors of sales tax. That is an issue. And then the sales tax itself. Any discussion on any of that from the board?
I'm unclear why the DDA is discussing that.
To make a recommendation representing the businesses of Woodland Park.
Okay.
Tanner?
It's a
Al?
good forum, to start the discussion and see where it goes, yeah. On these various things too, Noel, one of the things that I've heard for a large number of years up here is how expensive it is, for small businesses to succeed. With the increase in property tax assessments and then the amount of dollars that each business has got to pay, this may be a good time to help ease that load a little bit. So the city would probably be collecting more property tax from a given business, but they could also ease that burden a little bit by allowing the 3.33% vendor fee to be returned to the business, that we don't need it anymore. So the city probably, in the big picture, is getting more sales tax, but it's got to provide more services. But also it's getting more property tax this year in particular.
Right. And the two things that are, the one thing is the city can control is, vendor fees, obviously.
Yeah.
Sales tax, I'll go back, we haven't raised sales tax in 28 years. And,
Yeah.
that's not true.
What?
Well,
That's-
The city hasn't. The city, okay? The community voted in the 1.09 for the school, and the community voted in the 0.5 for the ambulance district. So, yes, I see sales tax being raised, but not by the city itself, which we can control.
No, the numbers of dollars are increasing.
Well, yeah, that's just the way it works.
Well, yeah, but this here is not to do anything to the sales tax numbers.
Right.
Only to return the vendor fee back to the merchants.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we can definitely look in. And then obviously
Yeah.
property tax. I just posted, that mill levies have decreased almost 10.5 points in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Or actually less, 6 years, 2014. So that is on a downward trend. But you're right, I think the focus could be the vendor fees.
Yeah.
But that would have to go to council, obviously.
Darren? This is a good discussion. I'm glad we're having it now. I mean, clearly, budget's been set for this year. I do want to look at this. I have discussed this issue with some city council members. I think it is something that maybe we can look at, but I got to look at it in the entire budget season and look at how we can address the issue. I think we are looking at different credit card vendors and trying to ways that we can actually reduce that actually vendor fee through changes in our credit card processing process. So we're looking at different ways to do that rather than the city absorb that. How we can possibly go about doing that. So if you look at all of our credit card processing across all of the issues that we have, there's some areas where we don't have that, and some areas where we do, and so we're actually analyzing this issue right now, trying to figure out what we can do to absorb that.
When you say our credit card processes, what are you referring to specifically?
Well, I'm talking about every different type of collection that we do, and then the vendor fee that you're talking about is a common vendor fee across the state. It's not like we're the only city that does this. In general, it's there to absorb. I mean, it's there to absorb. Is this live?
I didn't touch anything.
Sorry,
I was in love with buying, but I didn't do anything.
It's either there to absorb either credit card processing or actually the actual physical. Yeah, that is the physical resources that the city places against this. Again, I think it's important to let us we can analyze it, and this would be something that we can bring. I can respond to probably at the next meeting and let you know where I think we can make some possible changes. It does have an impact on the city, obviously. I think we've looked at several different factors. There's other ways that we can have a positive impact on the businesses as well through other elements of our fee structure as well. And so that will have a direct impact on the businesses. So we can take a look at that. And just get
that would be good. That would be good. And you think you can do that by the next meeting?
Well, I mean,
a little bit, just a little.
Yeah. When's your next meeting? Your meeting's Thursday.
He's going to go upstairs and do it right now.
I know.
First Tuesday in March.
The point is that you're having a discussion right now is good, and that we can have a discussion with this on during the budget season, so that we can make these changes for the better of the businesses.
Then let's say we will put it on the agenda at the next meeting, and we'll just do what you have. Tanner?
It is clearly our charge to promote the health, safety, welfare, and prosperity of the district. And as Al's mentioned, this has to do with the cost of operating here. And these items that are on the agenda for discussion today definitely affect the welfare and prosperity and health of the district. That said, it should be clear, this DDA and this board, this organization, has zero authority over the items. So any deliberation, any conclusion that we might reach, any position we might take, really is just nothing more than then a collective opinion on these topics and corresponding recommendations, suggestions, or requests that might move forward to council where the authority is held over these items. So,
Correct. It
all
would
that
just be a
said,
recommendation.
I do have a little bit of information about the sales tax vendor's fee, just informative type info to share, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay. The sales tax vendor's fee is a portion of sales tax collections allowed to be retained by businesses that collect, report, and remit sales taxes on time. This fee is in recognition of the actual costs, both administrative and those assessed by credit card processors, that retailers incur while carrying out the sales tax processes imposed by state and local governments. Here's a quote from the Colorado Chamber of Commerce website, who, incidentally, opposed a bill intended to limit the vendor fee owed to large retailers. Quote, "As most business leaders know well, Colorado has the dubious distinction among the 50 states of possessing one of the most complicated state and local government sales and use tax systems. The administrative burden for businesses to comply with the administrative headaches this tax system is real. With the administrative headaches of this, doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. I must have mistyped this. This tax system is real and onerous. It provides an incentive to retailers to promptly remit sales taxes to the state. Past legislators and governors recognize this fact. The vendor fee was adopted in 1935, and for 30 years it remained at 5%. It has varied from 3.33% in 1965 or lower to 3.33% today. It even dropped to zero for 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, during the Great Recession, when the legislature was starved for tax revenue." End quote. The city of Woodland Park reduced its vendor fee from 3.3% in 1994 to 1% in 1995 to 0% in 1996. The costs of city tax collection and payment have been paid by businesses ever since, and the city now lists this item in its own revenue line in the annual budget. In 2020, this is projected to be $223,195, which does not include the vendor fee on the 1.09% RA2 sales tax, which equates to an additional $80,283 for a grand total of $303,478 this year alone. It is worth noting that the city charges the school district an administrative fee for processing the school district's sales tax revenues. The county treasurer withholds a 3% fee when dispersing tax revenues to each taxing entity. That fee is to cover their costs of collecting, accounting for, and remitting the revenues, which businesses do constantly while acting as the sales tax agent for these entities. It's also worth noting that the state, the county, and ambulance districts all still allow the 3.33% sales tax vendor fee. So there's just a little bit of information.
Interesting.
And you said the city itself collects 200,000 around there, roughly?
223,195 is what's listed in the budget in two different places. It's about $145,000 in general fund sales tax revenue, which is a 2% revenue. 1% goes to the 410 fund, right? 1% sales tax funds the 410 fund. And if you look at, I think it's, I can't remember the page number, 65, the 65th page in the budget, which isn't the actual budget page number, but it's the PDF page number.
Okay.
I think is where the 410 fund is at, and you'll see another 70-something thousand listed there as the vendor fee associated with that, 1%. And then if you look at the school district revenue, if you were to calculate 3.33% on that, it's another 80,000. So that money reflects the costs that the businesses incur
to pay the city and school district sales tax. So, for instance, if somebody comes into any business and spends $1,000 and pays for it with their credit card, the $1,000 is perhaps the merchandise total, and then sales tax is applied on top of that. So their actual bill is $1,000, $84.90. Well, of that $84.90, a portion is not actually received by the business. The customer pays it.
Right.
They pay that, and that's the bill that, the charge that shows up on their credit card. But the money deposited in the business's account is less than that by 2.5% or 3% because of credit card processing fees. The city does not recognize that cost. Says you pay that business. You have to pay us the full amount that the customer paid, even though you didn't get that amount. So that's where this vendor fee comes in. It's recognizing the costs businesses incur while doing what the government requires them to do. And in our case, that vendor fee went away back in, like I said, 95. It went to 1%, and then 96 to 0.
So I see Darren.
Okay.
Well, in general.
Well, Murph had his hand up first, and then, go ahead, Murph. Tanner, were you done
Yeah.
for the moment?
Sure.
And then, okay, Murph.
So I was going to go into that I've been trying to figure out how to recoup these fees because my wife sat there and she says, well, that's just the cost of doing business. And I said, yes, dear, and we have to recoup every damned penny of that. However, when I try and recoup those costs, what happens? It's an exponential increase on everything because it's by percentage. So if I raise my price, now I'm charging more tax, now I'm paying more to the credit card fee, and I'm not getting a damn dime back out of this, okay? Not a nickel. Last year, I paid probably over $2,500 out of my business for the right, to my credit card company, for the right to collect taxes for the city. Okay, and when you're talking a business that did talking about a business that did almost $1 million, all right, I suddenly discovered I've got to cool off with the minimum tax or with the minimum wage increases, with the tax increases and everything else. It no longer behooves me to stay open 7 days a week. It has finally reached that point, okay, where everything has become so exponential. For instance, by law, I have to, and I cannot do a surcharge back to the customer. By law. The only people that can do that are cities, towns, and state. Okay? By law in the state of Colorado. I must eat all those costs. So, as a matter of prudence, like I said, I sat down and I finally went through all of my revenues for all Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, right down the line, every day. What do I total? Suddenly I discovered that once everything was said and done, and I had 2 years a day to go by, that I had $70 left to pay the taxes, to pay everything. Let's see. After revenues, I paid payroll, and then I had $70 left on Mondays, and I had $108 left on Tuesdays on average. Okay, so unless the city wants to subsidize me to the tune of over $150,000 a year, I must close 2 days a week, which only cut my revenues by 17%, but cut my payroll by 28%, and also cut down on the amount of tax and everything I'm pulling in as well.
No, you had your hand up.
Well, no, I'm thank you, Murph. Eye opener.
It is a, okay, Darren, you have something now?
Dial it in.
Just for context, I think it's important that, I don't disagree that the tax structure has an impact on businesses. I think one of the things the $228,000 or so that was discussed is if you remove all grants from the general fund, that's generally the buffer the city has in our budget today. In terms of revenue to put like a fire suppression system in 2021 into UPass Cultural Center, those types of safety requirements that will need to be, those capital requirements. If you remove it completely in like 1 year, those safety requirements could not be implemented in the city. So is there a possible way to gradually reduce that over time? Yeah, there's a possibility as long as you're able to achieve some of the really critical mandated safety requirements by the a fire marshal. So there's things that we need to achieve. At the same time, I can see where the possibility of actually having some gradual reduction over time. Immediately, that would be pretty significant. We do get a number of grants that could go away next year that you don't necessarily or you see in the general fund. That amounts to several $100,000. We're lucky to get that for our dispatchers, but it could go away after. And right now, the 911 authority is discussing removing those. So I just want to be clear. That's generally our buffer right now in the general fund, the amount that we're talking about. Can we gradually reduce it? Yeah, it's a possibility. Directly, completely, that could be pretty impactful on the city's ability to address those safety issues.
Why don't I talk to the other council members and see if we can have a workshop on business taxes and kind of get everything out in the open, and that way you can maybe we can't really, property tax is controlled outside of us. Sales tax is, that's a challenge. I'd rather have sales tax where people coming in from outside are paying a portion of that. But yeah, the vendor fees is what we deal with, so.
Okay. Tanner?
Do I understand correctly that the vendor's fee is effectively the buffer for the general fund? Is that, did I hear you?
It's one of the many fees, you can call it that, but that's it.
But that amount of revenue,
that's what
you're saying is essentially the buffer that's in the general fund?
What I would call debt service cover ratio, yeah, that's exactly around that exact amount.
Okay.
It's not, doesn't mean
the vendor fees are that.
It's any different form of revenue is part of it.
So what are the vendor fees used for?
It's part of the general fund to cover the expenses and operations of the city. Is there a direct nexus? You're saying what's the direct nexus for? You're identifying one revenue stream that goes into general fund. General fund goes to run the operations of the city. So
okay.
It's one of many fees that.
So that revenue stream is not allocated to anything specific?
No, it's not. Okay. The general fund.
Police salary.
Okay, and then Al?
Yeah, and I certainly recognize what Darren is bringing up too, is that this is a complex picture where cities or governmental, quasi-governmental of all sort have to be able to manage their income to what they can produce. And that can be, very difficult. And I certainly understand the complexities of that management process. But again, are the businesses being unfairly taxed, called as a fee, that makes them less competitive and more apt to fail? Maybe. The more that a business can grow, increase their revenues, then more sales tax, which is a bigger number, will come in. And that's more beneficial. If we can keep the business community healthy, that's the number one goal.
I would agree with that. Tanner?
So does that take us to the business license fee?
That's where I was going next. So you're going to take us to the business license. At one time, Woodland Park in Aspen had the highest business license fee in the state of Colorado.
I might open that up, Mary Jo. Kind of running around in my mind, to see what does the business license fee do. If a contractor comes in and wants to build something, they have to have a contractor's license. That contractor's license is a representation to the community that this person has certain skills that allows him to build a house or build a structure or build whatever it happens to be. Be it a plumber or an electrician, they have to have certain skills. If you're going to drive a 18-wheeler on the highway, you have to have special certification. So that's demonstrating that that person has certain skills. And there's a whole bunch of other licenses and certificates out there that demonstrate certain skills and propensities to do the job that they proclaim that they can do. The business license, as I understand it, and I have purchased them in the past, not currently, but in the past, it was just a matter of paying a fee. Anybody could come in and pay any fee, or pay the fee, and they could do whatever they were going to do. So what is the community receiving from a business license fee other than this is another expense for the retail or wholesale businesses? So do we really need it? If it's not protecting the safety and welfare of the community, what's it doing other than providing more revenue for a governmental entity? A hidden tax, and not necessarily a fee. Just a thought.
Good point, and I'm sure that the business license is set up for the city to keep track of who is in business, where does the sales tax come from, where does that. I understand needing a business license for the city to track the businesses in town. However, I think it's a little high. It's at $50. If $50 is going to break it, then you shouldn't be in business anyway. But it's just another amount that adds up that we could take and put back into inventory. We could do more advertising, that kind of thing. So I think it would help the businesses if it was a lower fee. Tanner?
I completely agree with what Al said. I think the idea of any fee whatsoever for it is to some degree just an unfair practice. It accomplishes absolutely nothing other than transferring money from the private business ownership to government ownership. That's all it does, is transfer money. It doesn't buy anything for that. It just funds the government in a way, in addition to and beyond the tax revenues that have been voter approved. The government does not have the authority to increase taxes, right, without the voters saying so. They can't just say, we want more money, we're taking it from you. That's unconstitutional. But they can impose fees, which is exactly the same thing. We need more money, we're going to take it from you, and therefore you have to pay a fee now. If it were a tax, it would have to go to a vote. But if you call it a fee, you can do it without a vote. It isn't right, in my opinion. So from that perspective, I oppose it. But more importantly, I think for this organization, I agree that it's just one more cost imposed on businesses. If we're a business-friendly community, a community that supports a DDA to go incentivize new growth and development because we want a healthier downtown, a city that supports a Main Street program because we want to support downtown, we want more business, we want more commerce, we want more economic vitality, then why impose the $50 fee in the first place? If the city's wish truly is to have a healthier, more vibrant community, look first to the city and what the city can do. And this is low-hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. It's $100,000 a year being siphoned out of the economy where that money circulates and generates prosperity and tax revenues. Mm-hmm. When you siphon that money out, you're impeding the market. I think there's no question that it's in the district's best interest to recommend that fee be eliminated.
Okay. I think this has really been good discussion. We've got 10 minutes left. I think that this has been a really good discussion. I think that this has really given us something to think about. Yeah. And if we could put this on the agenda for next week, and Darren, if you could come back with just any kind of ideas or what you could continue this conversation with.
Being that we have a shortage of time.
Next meeting in March.
That I would also say that many of these same philosophical thoughts applies to the lodging tax, where we want to make this, as friendly as possible. Because, when I travel around, and I see some of the huge amounts of lodging tax and fees that are now being applied to a lodging room, it just sort of says, this is ridiculous. But that's what's happening. Can we make our community better?
Yeah, and that also can be addressed in our conversations through the year as to how we can,
Mary,
how we can help the businesses.
just
Yes,
a
Jerry?
real quick comment. I really appreciate, I'm very much enlightened. I know more now than I did, and I appreciate your guys' input. It's good to know.
And for the context, within the city of Woodland Park, I do not have a vested interest in receiving or collecting or doing anything with any of these taxes or fees.
No.
But it's important to me as a community.
Yes. Okay, we are going to put this on the agenda for the March meeting. We will continue these discussions probably for months to come. And hopefully we can work out so the city isn't damaged, the business people are helped. Maybe we can figure this out.
Could I request that Tanner send that article that you had about the vendor fees and the percentage to Corey so he could send it to all of us? Okay, I'd like to have a
I
copy.
can send you there's a state fact sheet on the vendor fee showing you what all the vendor fees are.
Oh, I'd like that.
That would be good.
As well.
That would be good.
Okay.
Try to
Thank
get it
you.
out. Okay. And now we're moving down to 6, and this is a discussion regarding grants. Last year we had talked about grants to help our business people, grants for flowers, for the cleanup, that kind of thing. We don't have time to get far into this. We'll put it on next month's agenda. And we need to be thinking about grants, and the finance committee can see what we'll have this year after we've gotten our new tax from the assessor's office. We'll have a better idea of how much monies will be available this year.
Yeah, do we have the money? Yeah, the
Right,
funds.
and maybe we can have an amount that we can talk about some grants in the future to help the community and our business associates. So be thinking about that. We'll table it. And I would like to say we can move past the Colorado EVC. I've started some discussions with them. That would be Clark Becker. There are monies available through that. He has offered to come and speak with us, to talk to us about that, maybe to help us out with Woodland Station. That's why I contacted him. So he thinks that we have to work through the city if we work through them, and so we really need to make sure we have a good relationship with the city, that kind of thing, in order to get those grants and that money's coming through. So that is in the works. The COG railway car, and we need to see if there's any money available there. We've got Dwayne Carter had his daughter gave him a book of the pictures of the COG car for Christmas. He has made some extras up, and that can be a fundraising project for the COG car this year to sell those books. So that's a project that's in the works. Things to do, we need to get articles in the paper, how we're still accepting donations, and they are through the nonprofit, so they are tax deductible, that kind of thing, so that we can get an income coming in to landscape and to do what we need with the car to use for events. Any questions on that?
We could probably start that fundraiser off by suggesting that people on the board buy one of those books to kick it off.
Yeah, so we'll have them at the next meeting to show, and they're really nice books. They're all color. They're really pretty books. Going down to general discussion around the table, Tanner.
Moose's Loose kicks off Saturday morning. 20th anniversary, so yippee-ki-yay, the Moose's
20 years we've been doing that.
What's that?
20 years.
This is the 20th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're getting old. Yeah.
I know. So, it started, it was our first year in business down in Cascade when we realized winter up here is not the same as the rest of the year. And necessity is the mother of invention. So
Yes.
therein the Moose's Lucille was invented. And, continuing to this day, Saturday kicks off. Rumor has it there's going to be a showdown. There out in front of Tweeds, and it could be a little exciting, maybe a little on the dangerous side. So anyway, 250 moose bags are given out to the first 250 shoppers through the door. We have everything marked down 15 to 75% off, and 20 businesses in town participating, and all running sales and specials and discounts and whatever. So best time to be a consumer in Woodland Park.
Cool.
Good. I think I've talked.
Nothing to add.
Nick?
I think Tanner's was scripted. All night long, looking in the mirror to get that one. Definitely excited about the Moose's Lease. It's always a good time for us. I did get contacted by the Teller County Work Release Program.
Mm-hmm.
They've made more picnic benches, have offered if
we want
them. You know, sometimes they go fast, sometimes they don't. Right now, I think Janice has 6 or 7 of them done.
Okay.
If you guys would like me to, I mean, we can make it a picnic bench garden. I don't know. Maintenance is lower than the flowers. But if you guys would want me to do a couple more, I can do
What
that.
do we have right now?
We've got 6 out there right now.
And people do use them.
Yeah,
I
they do.
see them.
They
Even
do.
the other day, I saw them using them when
But,
it was cold out.
I mean, you know,
We
I
were
have
laying
one
on the
job on the
table in the
DDA, and I guess it's picnic
Yeah,
benches.
right.
So
That was a homeless person.
Well, you know what?
right.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because at some point, if we don't need them there, I know there's someplace else in the city that we would
Okay.
need them.
And those are, you know, they're available to the city too, to move somewhere else if they want to. I mean, it wasn't, it was just a donation by the county and
Sure. I would say a couple more.
Okay.
Is that all right, Tanner?
Well, I was going to mention the same thing. 2 things, 2 thoughts on that is, one, are there other areas in the district that would be, you know, good picnic areas? It is in our foundation plan to, I can't remember exactly what the wording is, but something about picnic areas. So the other thought was that at the rate that they keep cranking these things out and the season that we're in, you know, picnic season is not right now. It's at a low.
Demand
And
for picnic tables is down.
yeah, right. Yeah. Local demand for picnic tables is at a seasonal low.
Beautiful, though.
It might make sense to wait. I mean, if we were to pass on these, would more be available? In
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Just so we don't end
I
up
think
going,
so.
picking them up, and then letting them age through the winter, you know, and come into summer already 4 months old, and I mean.
No,
maybe-
I think so. That's one of their big projects. You know, that's something that for the work release people to, or the community service people, not work release, to get their time and their credits. So they should always be done. Maybe we can build what'd you call that, a jed head?
Head frame.
Head frame. We can get them out
Like
there
that
to build
head
you a head frame or something.
Because of the way the seasons overlap, I'm sorry, Nick, are you?
I'm done.
This lays out, do we get a couple picnic tables or not? The way that the benches in the alleyway, in Antler Alley, they're painted, and the ones that are around town, would there be any benefit in getting the picnic tables now and possibly turning them over to the art class at the high school to allow them to paint them, which will help preserve them as well, but also make them maybe a little more attractive? I don't know. That's just a thought out there. 17th is the Main Street meeting. It's also President's Day. Main Street, we're trying to get some stuff going. Karen Casey is working on putting together a doodle poll when everybody comes together to discuss how we can get government and business together in promoting the community and advertising and possibly creating some more traffic up here to assist in that. But that's still, I'm waiting on Karen to get that pulled together for us.
I'm excited about the Moose is Loose. Business has been awful. The weather has not helped, so I'm excited about that. And I really would like to consider, the board to consider how we could maybe influence the city on hiring a marketing director for Woodland Park that really worked on events and marketed Woodland Park and worked with the businesses and all the other nonprofits around to do events. And then the second thing, and I'd like us to think about that and talk about it in the future. And then the second thing, we aren't going to have a rodeo this year because Chuck Mahoney sold half of the rodeo grounds, so now it's not big enough to do that. So we're talking about a powwow, and we met with Roland McCook, who is the Indian that's painted on the side of the library, and Roland is going to try to round us up some Indians to do a powwow. Powwows have always worked very well in Woodland Park, so we're working on that. And I would like to ask, and I say this to the negotiating team, if we could have it on Woodland Station this year while we're waiting for them to break ground and move forward on that. So if you would ask a time frame. We haven't set the dates for the powwow. We have to see what we're not conflicting with and when the Indians will be available. So it will probably be in August, maybe the middle of September. So if you would ask that. Corey, you got anything else?
No, though I should probably let you know I will be gone for the last week of February.
Okay.
So
to get our meeting posted.
Right. If
we'll
I have the
to-
agenda ahead of time, I can schedule that to go out.
Okay.
Just click the button to schedule it.
Okay.
But I'll just let you know now that I'll be in Mexico for a week. So. I'll try not to check my email too much.
I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Corey. Jerry.
Well, riding the Tanner's pigtails and the Moose is Loose is very much appreciated. When he started it 20 years ago, I think it was solely a tweeds event, and then by your generosity to bring in the rest of the businesses that were developed. We all know that a stronger business community makes each of us stronger. But I for one applaud you for including the rest of the businesses in this town, and it's made it a true event that you should be proud of. And I just want you to know that I want the community to know how much he's done for the business community.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yep. Can you think of something for March and April?
Yeah.
Come on,
Hibernate.
Tina.
Mexico.
Okay.
Imports from Mexico.
And don't forget we have Jan, too.
Oh, Jan, give you general
no.
discussion?
Yeah, Jerry's, when you're streaming, Jerry's mic is very intimate, so you can't really hear anything he says, but I can hear the rest of you. Corey, if you need somebody to help you post those agendas, if you're going to be gone, I'll help you with that.
Okay, thanks, Jan.
Good meeting, and I could hear everything except when Darren was in front of the camera. I couldn't see anything but the back of his head.
Well, it was a nice head.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
But that's all.
Thank you, Jan. No. Anything?
I don't have any.
Suzanne, it's election.
Yay!
So, first I'm going to ask about the Moose is Loose. We haven't received any information here. I mean, I know it's going on, but in the past we've received literature brochures, we keep them at the front counter, we give them to the council. We haven't done that this year, so I don't know if it was overlooked or not, so I just want to mention that.
Thanks for letting me know.
You're welcome. Second, yes, we're in full swing with the election. We are preparing the ballot as we speak. Ballot will be certified next week. 2 dates that I'd like the DDA to put on their calendars if they're interested in is on March 3rd, there's going to be a debate or candidate forum at the high school that the high school kids are putting on. That's going to be in the Dixon Auditorium at the high school. The civics, Mr. Papadakis is in charge of that. And so the kids will be asking the council that's running, or the people that are running, the 9 candidates, all sorts of questions that are important to them. Because we never get to hear, what's important to the kids. So that's kind of it's a first for us, but it's pretty exciting.
Was that council and mayor candidates?
Yes.
That'll be at the forum?
Yes, so all 9 prospective candidates are invited. And
what time is that?
I believe it's at 6:30. I will confirm that. We just got the date, and I just did a save the date to the candidates that are running. But we're really excited
That's
to hear.
a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and the Dixon Auditorium fits tons of people, so we're hoping people will come, and the kids and the parents will come. We'll get to see what are the kids in this community, what's on their mind. Then we have our regular candidate forum, which will be on March 11th, and that's hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, and that will be held in this room here, and I believe that that's at 6 o'clock. And the last thing I wanted to say is, as Ellen can attest to, we had our second night of Citizens Academy last night. We have a record high. We have 29 students in the academy, and already have started a waiting list for the next academy for people that couldn't get into this one. So last night was all about planning and finance, and it's just something that the community really likes, and they're in high attendance, so we're excited about that.
Good news.
Yeah.
Sally?
Wanted to remind the DDA that the placemaking partners will be hosting a community meeting on February 26th at the Cultural Center, so we hope that you can all attend. It will be at 6:30 at the Cultural Center. It will be facilitated by community builders who helped us a year ago establish the strategies for walkability, signage, and facade improvements downtown.
Good. Any more discussion? Would you like to have a quote for the newspaper, Bob? Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn if we are done?
Okay.
A second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We're adjourned.
Mary Jo, question. On your marketing director, where does the Chamber of Commerce fit into that?
You tell me. You tell me.
I was curious.
But, Debbie's doing her little dog and pony show, and she's doing a great job of it, and she should keep